Yes, people, welcome to another episode of Beam. I'm your host, JR, and today I'm with a lady that knows no limits. She is a broadcaster, she's a brand specialist, she's a cultural commentator, and then some. Carina White, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for coming through. Really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having
I'm
me.
looking forward to this conversation. You're someone that has been very vocal about issues such as racism, colorism, and I want to delve a bit deeper into sort of where that came from. So when I was doing my research, I saw that you mentioned that you grew up or lived near National Front territory. So how was that, like growing up in that sort of environment?
Yeah, growing up southeast London was a very predominantly white area. So I grew up in Lee, which is kind of in between Lewisham and Eltham.
Okay.
So it wasn't quite as racist as Eltham, but it wasn't as diverse as Lewisham, literally like in the middle of both. So I went to school in Welling originally. So when I went to secondary school in Welling to Bexley Grammar. And I actually moved from that school because there was an incident at a bus stop when after netball practice, so I was coming home late. And now Welling's actually really, really diverse.
Yeah.
Like it's so diverse, but when I was at school, it wasn't. So I remember standing at the bus stop waiting for the 89 bus to take me to Blackheath. And these kids, not from my school, from another school, came and they were like, oh, if we kicked your face in the dirt, it wouldn't make a difference because your face is the colour of shit anyway and stuff like that.
What?
And, you know, I was year 7, so I was 12. And growing up, I never really realised like the impact of how old I was until I had my daughter. And my daughter's now the same age. And I'm like, wow, it kind of brought home the gravity of experiencing an experience like that at 12.
Definitely.
But yeah, it was very, it was little things like we didn't have mobile phones and stuff like that in those days. So it was kind of like making sure that you keep yourself safe because you can't call mum, you can't call dad for backup or to come and get you if something happens. So it was things like we weren't really ever allowed out late at night. And if we were, we'd have to call my dad on the house phone to come and pick us up. And I think, it's mad thinking about it now because those areas are very diverse now compared to when I was growing up. But yeah, it was a very mad time growing up in that National Front area. But you know what? Not as bad as a lot of my friends lived like near Bermondsey.
Yeah.
Near Millwall.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of stories to tell you about game day and living near Bermondsey where Millwall's playing. So as much as I had kind of like a uneasy experience, for them living like near Bermondsey as a black person,
yeah, I got
madness.
quite a few friends that grew up in Peckham, which is literally around the corner,
Yeah.
and they've told me some stories about Millwall, even to this day. Like I said,
oh yeah, because it hasn't changed.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. We'll talk about football. We'll definitely talk. We'll get into football. But I want to touch on talking about bus stops, Eltham, Lee. I can't not mention Stephen Lawrence, which was something that was shocking to the nation, but I feel people in the black community was not shocked. You know, these types of things have been happening. A really, really sad story. But how do you, when that happened, and sort of, how did that affect you?
I think I was I'm trying to think if I was in primary school or if I'd started secondary school yet. But that bus stop to where we lived was a 10-minute drive, if that. There used to be a cinema on the corner of there's where he got stabbed and killed. There's a massive roundabout, and there used to be a cinema on the corner there, and that was our local cinema. But we never used to get the bus there ourselves. Like my dad or my mum would drop us there and then pick us back up when the film finished. And it's mad to think that could have been any of us. That could have been, maybe not me, because I wasn't old enough at the time to, be getting the bus by myself, but that could have been my sister, that could have been one of her friends, like, could have been my cousin, it could have been any of us, because we literally lived down the road and around the corner from there. And I think, again, I didn't really understand the gravity of it until I grew older and was growing older, because obviously that whole trial around Stephen Lawrence, that went on for years. The topic of Stephen Lawrence and institutionalized racism within the Met, and that went on for years. That was a discussion that was going on for years. So that was like my childhood, right? Like growing up through teen years. And I think each year as I got older and the conversation was there and the narrative was there around Stephen Lawrence, it kind of impacted, and you realise, that boy literally died because he was black.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing anything else. He died because he was black. And Dwayne that he was with at the time, through the various things that I do, I've got to know Dwayne. And it's mad because I think like that friendship that we had or have might have never happened, because it could have been him that was, being buried that day, that was killed that day. So yeah, I think as I've got older, the gravity and kind of understanding what it meant for me as a black woman kind of manifested as the years went on, because I was a little bit too young to really understand what had happened.
Yeah, and looking back, when you did get old enough to understand what happened, we've talked about Stephen Lawrence, we've talked about when he was approached at the bus stop, come back from netball, like two hard-hitting incidents at a young age. Do you think those experiences kind of planted the seed subconsciously for what you do today in terms of diversity and getting involved in really breaking down barriers?
Other than the fact that I've got a big mouth, and I just like to, challenge people. Like debate club was my favourite topic in school. So other than the fact that I've got a big mouth, maybe subconsciously it did. I think as well, I'm raising a daughter, and I think there's this narrative around black parents, young black parents, that you can't advocate for yourself, or you don't know how to articulate yourself properly. In terms of those are the stereotypes that are attributed to us. Mm-hmm. For me, I've got a voice and I've got the ability to be able to articulate myself. I'm from South London. I can talk like I'm from South London, but then at the same time, I can go on television or talk to someone and be able to articulate myself in a way that they're going to understand, to take me seriously, right? And I think when it comes to issues of racism or any other issue that's happening in society now, why wouldn't I speak up and say something? It's something that means a lot to me. It's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I don't want to be having these same conversations in 10, 15 years' time. So if I don't want to be having those conversations, we have to use our voices now and challenge it and raise awareness around it and, give our opinions about it. But I think the catalyst for me more so is I'm raising a daughter. I don't want her to go through the same experiences that I went through. I've got godkids, I've got nieces, I've got nephews. I don't want them to go through the same experiences that our generation went through, the generation before them went through, the generation before them went through. At some point, it's got to stop. So yeah, I think my experiences definitely have formed a basis for what I do, but also I think I've got a big mouth. So.
No, but I definitely commend you for what you do. We're going to talk about the different arenas that you've broken down barriers in and been fearless in, if I'm honest with you, in regards to some of the things that you've achieved in your career. So we'll talk about that. But I want to talk about you went acting school.
I did.
You went acting
How
school.
did you know?
You went acting school, and again, not to harbour on the race side of things, but I saw a podcast that you did, and you walked in, you was like the only black kid there.
Story of my life. Story of my life.
So again, how did that feel? Because again, another experience at a young age that you must be thinking, hold on, Zach, something's not right here. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, it's the story of my life being the only black child in the room. It was normal back then. It was really normal. So I don't think it was something that I really thought about. Even my whole school experience, when I got moved from the school in Welling, my parents moved me to a private school in Blackheath. And at the time, everyone used to say, oh, your parents must be so rich. Your parents, you know, they're so well off. And I'm like, right, if Dennis and Dorrit are, I don't see that. Like, I don't see that. I come from the generation of my dad being at home and you tell him it's cold and he'll tell you to go and put a jumper on because he's not putting that central heating on. So if my parents are rich, like, we don't see it.
Yeah.
And it's as I've got older, I realised my mum was ill when I was younger. She had cancer. And so she had to reduce her hours at work because she was seriously ill and she was having chemotherapy. My dad took on an extra job. So he used to have his own his own company as a driving instructor. And he then took on a job at the post office. So he would get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the post office to deliver post until 1 o'clock. And then he'd come home, eat, and then go out and teach driving lessons. My mum would have chemotherapy, come home and go into work afterwards, just because they had tuition fees to pay. So it wasn't that we came from a wealthy family. My parents sacrificed a lot to be able to afford to send us to private school because they wanted us to have a better education, and B, they felt for me specifically, my safety was compromised because I was being told, you know, kick your face in the dirt, it's not going to make a difference, you know. So for them, they felt that they had to do everything that they could to send us to private school. So going to a private school, there was hardly any black kids there. And the black girls that were in my school, naturally, we all gravitated towards each other. Yeah. And that was an issue. That was an issue for them. So we always used to get into trouble simply being groups of black girls, you know, being together in school. And I remember, like I said, those were normal experiences for us. And when I went drama school on the weekends, normal experience being the only black person. And it's only as I got older, I started reflecting on certain things that were said to me. And I was like, hang on a minute. Yeah, nah, you could never get away with that now. I remember my Spanish teacher telling us, you know, like as kids, right? Year 7, year 8, you just do dumb stuff, especially when you go to an all-girls school, like you just do dumb stuff, giggling and whatever. Yeah. And I remember my Spanish teacher told us, and it must have deep down resonated with me in that this wasn't something that you should say, why I remember it. I remember her telling us that we're refugees from year 6. What? And it's that, why would you use that term, refugee? Like, we're all kids that were born here. Like, we're not refugees. And it's those kind of covert racism and microaggressions that I experienced in school, which I think, when the penny dropped and I realised, no, you actually tried to mug us off by calling us refugees, that even more so, I'm like, yeah, nah, this is not going to happen, like, going forward. Like, we've got to talk about this. But yeah, I think it was just normal. It was normal being the only black girl in spaces, like, so normal. It's
interesting you say that, because I'm thinking back to my time at school when, you know, certain things that I'm clocking now that was like, no, that's a microaggression. Like, you know, turn up for sports day and they're like, oh, you can run fast. Like, you should do the 100 meters. Because I'm the black guy. Like, what's going on? Like,
you mean Usain Bolt before Usain Bolt?
Exactly. So, like, no, back then you're thinking, yeah, they think I can run fast. Like, and then hold on, taking me for a mug. But I get what you're saying. And also as well, just to touch on the point, it's not only till you get older till you understand the sacrifices that your parents make for you.
100%.
And I'm going to ask you a question. I want to talk about that, you know, as you being a mum now, the balance between, you know, sacrificing your dreams, your career, what you want to do, at the same time making sure that your daughter doesn't have to go through the same things that you do. But we'll touch on that because we're here to talk about black mums up front. We need to big up the girls, everything. So we need to do all of that. But I spoke before about you moving in spaces and breaking barriers. Sports and football, to be in particular, is where your career started, right? Definitely. As a sports agent. Now, not being funny, there's not many female sports agents, period, within football, let alone black ladies. So how did you get into that?
Do you know what?
Excuse me.
I always tell this story. It's so random. So it was New Year's Eve, and I was doing the door at a club in West End. And, you know, I mean, I'm mouthy now, but back then I was, there was just no filter, like, so, like, much attitude, everything. And I remember I was doing the door, it was New Year's Eve. Obviously, everywhere's, like, super expensive. So it was, like, £20 to get in. Obviously, back then, £20 was a lot. So this guy came up and he was like, oh, I want to come in. So I was like, that's not a problem. It's £20. And he was like, oh, it's kind of expensive and I don't have £20. So I was like, I'm going to need you to move out my queue then. Like, because if you haven't got it, you're not coming in. And he was like, oh, I've got £10. So how about if I just give you the £10, you keep it, and then, you know, I can just come in. Yeah, no, it's £20. So if you give me the £20 or remove yourself out the queue. Cut a long story short, it was his event.
Okay.
And I didn't know. And so he was like, what do you do? So I think I was like in between jobs then. Or maybe I wasn't working, I'm not even sure. And he was like, I've just qualified as an agent. We're opening up offices. I really need someone who is trustworthy that can come and, you know, work in the office.
You showed yourself without even knowing.
Without even knowing. It was like a job interview without even knowing it was a job interview. So I was like, okay. I'm thinking, all right, you're just trying to move to me and this is like your way of moving to me. That's a new one. Cool. But yeah, Leon Calendar, like I owe a lot to him because he gave me my first job in football, came in as a secretary, the only female in an office full of men.
Wow.
Then basically, started helping the boys out in terms of being an agent, then doing partnerships and sponsorships for the players. And yeah, it was a very, one thing I can say is all the boys that I worked with, Leon, Dan, Euban, they never treated me any differently. So, you know, I was just Carina. I wasn't a woman, I was just Carina, who does her job. If I did experience any kind of sexism or anything like that in the course of doing my job, they would always have my back, always. I remember going to I had to go and see like a chairman of a football club, and he was like, oh, where's Leon? So I was like, oh, Leon couldn't make it. I had to go and sort something else out, but I'm here. And he was like, I'm not going to discuss grown man business with a woman. So I was like, ugh.
This is mad.
Right.
That's mad.
So I kind of sat there and I was like, do I just take this or do I get South London on him? Like, what do I do? So I just said, at the end of the day, our player wants to leave. So you either talk to me now and we can try and get him to stay, or he leaves. The choice is yours. And he kind of was like, okay, fine. And then we sat down and spoke. And as much as I roll my eyes at incidents like that, it's definitely made me part of who I am today in terms of being able to stand my ground and stand on my own 2 feet. But yeah, being a woman working within sport, especially a black woman, that was a space that you didn't really see many of us in. People thought I wanted to be in that space to bag myself a football player or to be a wag or whatever it is. And clearly I wasn't successful because I didn't bag myself for football if that was my agenda.
You don't.
But
you're good.
you know, good. But it was never. That was never my agenda. But it was funny that's the narrative that was put on me because I'm a woman and because I was a black woman working in sports.
So I was going to ask you what some of the challenges that you faced in being a male-dominated industry, but you've answered that with that example. So
I'd also say as well, like being a mum to the men. Like literally
do you
being
know
a mum.
what? Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
because you know, sometimes men can't function without a woman's input, right?
Listen, look, you're putting me on the spot here because I've got the man them in one here saying back us, and then on the other hand, I'm like, do you know what I mean? It's true, it's true. So look, please, remain neutral. But I agree. But like, for example, like you, Ben. I remember you, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, you used to do a lot with like Wandsworth Wandle. I used to play, I used to be in the Fulham Football Academy. So I remember you, Ben, there was a scout called Sonny, who was about as well. But yeah, man, you, Ben, cool guy.
Such a cool
Very
guy.
Cool guy.
Such a cool guy. And even now, like when I see them, like him and all the guys that I worked with, I always say to them, like, I always have to big them up and give them credit where credit's due because, again, without them, I don't think, and the experiences that I had whilst working for them, I don't think I'd be where I am today because, you know, it definitely made me a stronger person and also enabled me just to learn a lot about a sport that I didn't really have any interest in. So, yeah. Yeah.
Football's a £1 billion business now, like worldwide, global. And for someone like yourself that is worked in the ins and outs of football and understands why things happen, what was the biggest thing that shocked you when you got into football? Like, could have been partnerships or it could have been players' contracts. Like, what was the biggest thing that shocked you when you got in there?
I'd say like actually just how cool some of the players are in that, you know, people see them and think back then anyway that they had big egos, or, you know, that they get paid like a ridiculous amount of money, like just for kicking a ball around. And I think the biggest shock to me was seeing their training schedule, like seeing the things that, like, you know, how many days a week that they're in training, and then, you know, and the type of training that they were having to do. I can just about run up and down the stairs. So I definitely would not have been, you know, kicking a ball around for 90 minutes on a, you know, football-sized pitch. Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely one of them. And also, I just think how, I don't want to use the word babied, but like how well taken care of like Premier League players are by their clubs and stuff like that. They don't have to do anything. They have people there that do, you know, really look after them. Which in a way is a good thing, but then in another way it's like, you know, I've heard stories where you've got players that have moved into their own house and they don't know how to change a light bulb because they've never had to, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, I think definitely working in that industry, it's an eye-opener, whether it's contracts, whether it's partnerships, or just the amount of money that gets exchanged within that industry. Like you said, it's $1 billion industry. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talked about sort of players and how they're babied and how they move through the system. And I want to link that to a couple of cases that we've seen recently with like sexual harassment, right? Greenwood, allegedly, Mendy, allegedly. And again, as someone that has been close to players, Premier League players, and seen them come through, you know, going to big amounts of money at young ages, like, why do you think we're seeing players get into this situation? Because when I ask you that question, what I mean by that is, you know, Greenwood's a young guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I probably, you know, the experiences that me and you have had, he will never, you know, have those experiences. So is it a sense of entitlement when it comes to that side of things, or what do you think their mindset is at that time? I
can't comment on whether, you know, it's true or not, but I think in terms of them getting into negative circumstances, whether it's allegations or not, I think it comes down to their team. You've got to have a fucking good, amazing team around you. Like, I get, especially with a lot of the younger players, they want to keep their boys around that they've grown up with, that's come up with them and stuff like that. But sometimes those same people are going to be your downfall. Yeah. Especially when you're in the limelight, you're earning, you know, thousands and thousands of pounds per week. You can't be doing the same things that you were doing when you were Jamal, you know, living at your mum's house and going playing in the academy. Do you get what I mean? Like, all eyes are on you. Like, this is the big leagues. Do you know what I mean? And I think it comes down to having a brilliant team around you. You should have your agent and have your friends around. But if you've got to make a decision and say, right, are these people going to be my downfall, or are they going to elevate me and make sure that I'm not put in certain situations that could be detrimental to my career? If you think yes, they are, you've got to drop them out, and that's just real life. Yeah. That's real talk, it's real life. Otherwise, your career could come crumbling down. Because if I had a player and he's saying to me, I'm going out to this party, yeah, there's going to be girls there, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? We're all going together. Because if I see you going into a situation that I know you shouldn't be in, or that could potentially lead to something else, it's time to go home.
But your mentality is different. You're really there for the players' well-being, right? And I haven't worked in football, but I would imagine that there's a lot of bloodsuckers in regards to...
Yeah, they're just there for the turn-up. And that's why I say you've got to assess the people that you've got around you, because I know if I've got people around me and I'm earning money and they're going to come with, like, if I'm good, they're good. But then also I know if I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, like even now, not on the same level at all, but if I tweet something or whatever, I guarantee you one of my friends will say to me, you sure you want to say that? You sure you want to drag that person? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think you need those people around, especially the younger ones. They need older people around them. They need good agents that aren't just managing them for, the commission or the payments that they're going to be making off of them. They've got to really be, there for them as an individual and care about their well-being and what they're doing. You just need a good team around you, because I think having the wrong people around you, regardless of whether you're a footballer or anyone, can be really detrimental to where it is that you're trying to be.
Definitely. Football has a racism problem. I don't think that's up for debate, in my opinion. My humble opinion.
It's not up for debate. They do have a racism problem.
But the taking of the knee, the symbol, caused some controversy. What's your thoughts on that? I've touched a nerve.
I get why some people might want to kneel and do all of these gestures. I don't care about all of that. I've said it before, football does have a racism problem. Whether people want to admit it or not, it's a fact, there's a racism problem. But it's not just confined to football. It's racism as a societal issue. The same people that you get in society screaming N-word that, abused me at that bus stop will go to football games. It's not an issue about football specifically, it's a societal issue. And part of that society is the people at the top. So when I see, football clubs or organisations within sport posting black squares or saying, we stand with Black Lives Matter or whatever it is, do you really? Because I guarantee you, if I look at your Christmas party pictures, or if I look at your leadership pictures, or I look at your governing board, it's not going to tell me that you stand with Black Lives Matter. It's going to tell me that it's a group of white people sitting around making decisions about players and things that happen within the industry, where you have majority black players in that industry, where you don't know anything about the background that they come from, their experiences, but because you need to look good, you're going to take the knee, or you're going to wear a black armband, or you're going to post a black square, or you're going to engage with kick it out. But really, do you really want to kick racism out of football? Because if you did, you would address what your leadership team looks like and what your governing board looks like, right? And I think, like I said, it's not an issue that's confined to football, it's a societal issue. But if those within football, and specifically football clubs, want to make a difference, they need to look at their leadership teams. They need to look at the people that work for them that are off non-playing staff, and ensure that actually, before you start saying we want to kick racism out of football, start really looking at your structure and your own organisations and what that looks like.
It is a societal problem. None more so the murder of George Floyd, which is actually what kind of sparked the taking of the knee, because I know Colin Kaepernick done it before, the incident happened with George Floyd was murdered. And I think what was your emotions when you saw that George Floyd video? Because I saw that you was marching along with everyone in across the world, but when we had our marches in London, you was out there. Like, what was your emotions when you saw that, as someone who's...
I was so irritated because I've been trying to avoid watching the video. So I heard everyone talking about it on socials. I, heard people talking about it on the news, and I tried so hard to avoid watching that video. And even now, thinking about it, I always get tears in my eyes. I always feel emotional. When I watch the video, I literally burst out into tears. Then my daughter ended up watching the video inadvertently, and then I had to explain to her what she was actually watching. And at the time, she would have been 10. So imagine trying to explain to a 10-year-old that you've literally just watched someone be murdered on the television in real life in front of you. Like, that's crazy to me. So when you have people taking the knee, I get that people want to do it as a symbol of solidarity, and that's fine, but I'm about action. I want to see change, and taking a knee isn't bringing about change. It's bringing about awareness, which is great. But for me, I need to see that change happening across industries, across different organisations. And
I found it ironic. Just what I found ironic was the shift. All of a sudden, corporates, big media conglomerates they're ready to have the conversation. All
They
of a
weren't
sudden,
ready to have the conversation. They wanted to look like they were ready to have the conversation
This
to
day.
avoid getting backlash. Because really, when you start looking at all of those organisations that were posting black squares and were saying, we stand with the black people, Black Lives Matter. When you start looking at that, 2 years later, what's really changed, Hans? What's really changed? What are the experiences of the black and people of colour that work in your organisation? What are their experiences of being staff within your organisation?
Yeah.
Like, what does your governing board look like? What does your senior leadership team look like? What does your EXCO board look like? But we stand with Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
It's all talk. But for me, it's like, for that period, I was like, guys, go and work. You go and push the fact that you're black and get your money, because right about now it's sick to be black, because we're getting paid.
We're getting paid. The doors are opening, and it's going to be a short window. So just no. It's going to be a short. So just grab it.
No, but also go and grab it and show them actually how amazing you are. Because once your foot's in the door, for a lot of people, that's all the chance that they needed was to get their foot through the door, to show organisations that actually, I'm sick at my job, you know? But a lot of companies wanted to be seen to be, you know, supporting the Black Lives Matter, but the question is, did they really?
Yeah, I until this day, like I said, I don't think they did, or they are, and I think it's going to take, unfortunately, something like that, as horrible as that, it's going to take more for them to, essentially, in my opinion, it's going to need to hit them in the pockets deep before they start thinking about what they're going to do moving forward. But BComs, Black Collective of Media in Sports.
Yeah.
Explain your role there, because you guys are, you know, what I mean, you guys are trying to change the narrative. So, and some people may have not heard of BComs. I know when I only came across BComs because when I was doing my research.
Yeah.
So explain your role there, what you do.
So BComs, yep, you were right, Black Collective of Media in Sport. We are an organisation that works with all the major sports broadcasting companies to change the diversity of the sports media, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. When, I don't know if you remember when Raheem Sterling did that infamous Instagram post.
Yeah.
The reason why, you know, you get a lot of differences in how the sports news is reported when it's a white footballer compared to a black footballer is because of the people writing the news and writing the article, or when you get people's pictures that are getting mixed up and they're, you know, printing a picture of Stormzy when they're talking about Lukaku. There's a reason for that, right? We need to change the diversity of the sports media. So we work with all the major sports broadcasting companies, TV, radio, print, to try and improve their diversity off screen and on screen. We have a lot of workshops and courses that we run, but then also we work in conjunction with those organisations to offer paid placements, or, you know, entry-level positions, or middle management positions, whatever it might be, to get people in the door that don't look like the traditional sports journalists. So my role is I sit on the board. And stunt. Yeah, talk your talk. Stunt. Yeah, stunt. Talk your talk. Yeah, you know, I said, you know, just a little, little something. Yeah, little something. Yeah. Talk that talk. Yeah. But yeah, I sit on the board for BComs. I've been on the board, I think maybe about 3-4 years now. And to be honest, I don't really know what we do. No, it's absolutely fantastic, especially when I see a lot of the cohorts that have come through the programs and stuff that we have, and then I now see them working at, you know, BT Sport or Amazon or wherever it is, and I'm like, that's amazing, because if it wasn't for the work that we do, you might not had that chance or had that position to be able to get in there. So it really is fantastic. That's big. How can people get involved with BComs? Where can they get support? Plug that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this definitely want some support. Literally, if you Google BComs, the first hit that should come up should be for our website. If not, I'm pretty certain it's bcoms.co. I'm pretty certain it's that. If not, just DM me, email me. I can send you the link. So if anyone's watching this and they're interested in getting into the sports media, please do hit me up. I can direct you into the right direction of where to get more information about that, because we need to see more diversity within the sports media, and we're trying. So reach out and I can direct you in the right place.
Definitely. Black Mums Upfront.
Yes.
Shout out to the girls.
Yes.
It's an amazing podcast. I was going through it, and I saw
Did you listen to it?
I saw a couple of topics. I was like, it's not for me.
No, it is. This is the thing.
It's not for me. It's not for me.
It's not for me. It's for everyone. You don't have to be a mum. You don't have to be black. You don't have to be a woman. It's for everyone.
Look,
honestly, you might learn a few things.
Listen, some of the topics I was like, is this what women are talking about?
You might learn a little something.
All right. All right. But what made you start that with the girls? Because as I said, it's an amazing podcast. So.
It was very evident that was, a space that was needed. When you look at TV programs, or you look at whenever there's like something to do with a mum, it's never a black mum. And if it is, it might be a mixed relationship, which is fine. But, there's so many different avenues to being a black mum that we wanted to create that space to talk about, the things that affect us, the things that affect women that are like us. And I think that was definitely one of the biggest reasons for starting the podcast. But also, I'm not your typical, I'm not like someone who wants to sit and talk about their child all day, every day.
Yeah.
And there's other women that are like that. But then there's other women that do like to do that. And I think both experiences and both narratives are completely valid. But it's about showcasing that actually there's different ways to be a black mum. But also, just to hear our experiences. We get so many mums that reach out to us from different ethnicities that are raising black mixed children, and just simple things like they don't know what to do with their hair, they don't know how to do their hair, or they might be experiencing racism, or they want to have the conversation with their child about race without taken away from the fact that they're mixed. And it's about helping and supporting other mums to have those conversations, or to, educate them on, this is mixed hair, this is what you can do with mixed hair, this is, where you can go and get their hair came-road, or, it's all of those things, because where else will you go? If you go onto like Net Mums or Mumsnet, where most white mums will go to get advice, you can go on there and see physically people have asked the question and no one has responded to them. But you ask them about, how to make an Easter hat for Easter or whatever it might be, and you will have loads of people that will be able to tell you. So it's, I think it's really important to have those spaces and really important to have those conversations and just bring black motherhood to the forefront.
Definitely. And you guys have real conversations. One of the real conversations that you've had and been open about is unfortunately losing your mum as a teenager. And must have been a traumatic experience for you. But I also admire you because it did take a lot to speak about that experience. I know as black people, when things like that happen, you just shut down, right? But why did you feel the need to express it and let people share your experience?
Even with everything that we talk about, we're open books, right? We will talk about any and anything. There's very little that we won't talk about, and I think it's to normalize the conversations, because there's a lot of conversations we don't have within the black community because of alleged shame or perceived shame or whatever it might be, and because of that, people are suffering. We don't talk about mental health in our community at all.
Not at all.
Like, it's only recently it's now okay to talk about mental health, and if you're having counselling or whatever it might be. And that's because more people are talking about it and it's becoming normalised. Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth. That statistic has been around for years. No one was talking about it, so no one was doing anything about it because no one was talking about it. And it's taken for people to actually say, hang on a minute, we're dying.
Yeah.
We're 5 times more likely to die just because we're trying to bring a child into this world, that now the powers that be are starting to take note, because we're starting to take note, because we're talking about it more. And I think the more that we normalise conversations across the board within the Black community, the more those topics become normal, and you can actually get action out of talking about it. We did a survey around baby loss, and we had an overwhelming response from Black women and Black mixed women, because they had lost a baby. Because I think, if I'm right, I think we are 4 times more likely to experience baby loss and Black mixed women are 3 times more likely to experience baby loss than white or Asian women. And I know so many people that have lost a baby, they don't talk about it, they completely shut off because they think something's wrong with them, or they think that they're broken. And they're not. It's something that happens to so many of us, but nobody talks about it. So because of that, there's no support there for you, because you think that people aren't experiencing it. And off the back of that, we've been able to work with one of the leading baby loss charities to they've now just employed their very first Black support officer, who specifically will be working with bereaved families from the Black and Black mixed community, because that wasn't there before, you know. And so there's a lot of, as much as we laugh and joke sometimes, and, you know, we talk about stuff on the pod, for us, it's really about bringing around change and bringing around action as well. So I'm just so, like, proud and humbled that through talking, we've also been able to affect some change.
Definitely. And, you know, you guys certainly bring real issues to the forefront. There is laughs and jokes. I saw one episode, I think, when you were talking about meeting the other woman at Christmas. I skipped that one for sure, because I knew that was drama. So I was like, nah, let me, yeah, you know what I mean? This ain't for me. I'm going to avoid that one.
You got personal experience with that?
No.
You sure? Moving swiftly on. Wow. Woo. Moving swiftly on. But look, we've talked about so much. We've talked about BComs. We've talked about you being a sports agent. You've achieved so much. And we touched on it earlier, but we didn't sort of go into it. How do you balance it all? I don't. I wing it. Honestly, I absolutely wing it every day. I'm getting more organised though.
Okay.
Like, I'm really proud of myself. I'm using my diary and getting more organised. But yeah, it's for me, in terms of being a mum and balancing it all, I'm really lucky because I've got an amazing support system. Plus my daughter's older now, so it's definitely much easier. I think it's about having your village. But also it's stuff that I'm passionate about, so I make time. So if it means that, you know, I'm going to bed at midnight or whatever, then so be it. But I'll always try and make time for myself as well, and self-care, and time, you know, spend time with my daughter where I can. So yeah, the short answer is I don't. I just wing it.
No.
But somehow it all seems to come together and work. So.
It does, and you're doing amazing. As I said, you're doing an amazing job. You touched on your daughter, and again, I'm going through the podcast and I'm looking at different things that you've done. And then there was one incident that I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I need to ask you about how you dealt with this. And I'm not talking about the South London way of dealing with it, like how you dealt with it properly. Was when your daughter experienced racism at the age of 5.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, she's from South London. I know where this is going to go. But then when you answered it, I was like, oh, okay. It didn't involve violence.
I should have run up in the house, innit? Like, sorry, what's good? What did you say? What did your child say?
Just we're not advocating violence, everyone, but, you know, we're from South, so, you know, how it goes.
Yeah, you know, so when that incident happened, she was at her grandmother's house and she didn't tell anyone about it. And it's only this was the summer before she was starting primary school reception. So she'd just left nursery going into primary school. And we'd gone to Clark's to go and buy school shoes. And just randomly she said, oh, Mum, do you know what happened to me when I was at Nanny's? And I was like, what? And she said, we were all playing out, because her nan lived in a close at the time. She was like, we were all playing out, and the girl came back from the shop. I don't know if she bought like chips or something like that. And they basically said, the little girl said to her, you can't have any because you're black, but your cousin can have some because she's only half black. So I was like, right. So, you know, I did the whole thing of, where was Nanny when this happened? Did you tell Nanny? How did it make you feel? What happened next? And all of that. And then I remember ringing her nan, and her nan and her auntie wanted to go and knock on the door, and they were like, you know, and I want to come round and eat our chicken when we've got barbecues and that. They need to know that they can't never come back to my house, you know. They can't never come back to the house, but you want to eat out the black people's chicken, but they can't have none of your chips.
It's facts.
So I was like, so her aunt was like, no, I'm going round. I was like, guys, no, please, it's really not necessary.
So you was the calm one?
Yeah,
oh,
I was like, I was like, you know, and for me, it was more I wanted to make sure my daughter was okay.
Yeah,
I didn't care about them. I wanted to make sure my daughter was okay. However, her nan and her auntie wanted to deal with it and revoke invites to barbecues. That's fine. But for me, it was making sure that my daughter was okay. And, you know, we get asked a lot how to talk to your children about race. And I always say it's about it. You don't have to sit them down and say, right, Sarah, today we're going to talk about race. You don't need to do that. No black person sits down and says to their child, we're going to talk about the fact that you're black. You don't. I think for me, my only regret was that I didn't maybe have a conversation with her earlier. And I mean, how much earlier can you have a conversation with a 5-year-old? Yeah, about racism. That was kind of my only regret in that sense, that I didn't start exploring that concept of racism with her before she experienced that experience. But like I said, a lot of people, we get booked by a lot of companies and stuff to talk to staff about how to talk to their kids about race. And one thing I always say is it's got to be age appropriate, but it's simple things. Diversify your bookshelf, diversify the TV programs that your child is watching, diversify the toys that they're playing with. You know, there's absolutely no excuse for you to not have diverse toys. Barbie does a whole heap of like black dolls in different shapes, different sizes, different hair types, afros, everything. There's absolutely no reason. The days have gone. Back in my day, where you couldn't get a black dolly, you can get those now.
Numerous now.
So if you are claiming that you can't get a black dolly, or you can't get black books, or you can't find black TV programs like age appropriate, it's because you don't want to, and you don't want to, you know, have that conversation with your child. And I think if you do want to have the conversation, start by them reading a book with diverse characters or having diverse dolls, and then you can then lead on from that and have a conversation off the back of that can still be age appropriate. But I think the only way that we can change the way people think in the future is by working on the younger generation now and really raising them to be global citizens, because otherwise we're going to continue having these experiences.
We're done for. I'm going to put you back in podcast mode, and I've got to get my little gossip question out there. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like, Kim and Kanye. This whole episode, we've seen it play out, you know, as a mum. How are you digesting what's happening? Because there's kids involved.
Yeah.
And from Kanye's perspective, it seems like, you know, he just wants to be there for his kids, and Kim is not letting him see his kids. So there's a whole heap of questions I've got, but like, as a mum, how are you reading the situation?
So I can understand both sides, but I think the way Kanye is going about it, he is a public figure, as is Kim. His kids, especially North, they're going to be old enough where their friends in school are talking about it, where in the future they're going to be able to Google it and see all of this information there on the internet. I think airing out your business, especially when kids are involved on social media, is a no-no, regardless of what the context or the situation is. You earn enough, you have a lawyer, you can go through your lawyers. I think for me personally, obviously we can only take what we see at face value. Of course. The fact that Kanye is doing the absolute most, I think in some regards it borders on intimidation and emotional abuse, that, you know, you're trying to get your own way by putting something out on social media where people are gonna, you know, start commenting. There's the newspaper articles are going to be written and whatever. So to me, it's like you're trying to do that to get your own way. However, with that being said, and the reason why I don't believe it in this regard is because they both have enough money to do this through lawyers.
Yeah. So
that's different. However, with the average Joe that doesn't have access to heaps and heaps of money, I do feel sorry for dads who don't have access to their kids or who can't see their kids, because there are a lot of women who do use kids as a weapon against the dads. My feelings is that if your children are not at harm, physical or emotional harm in any way, shape or form by being with their dad, whatever issues you have with the dad, that should not impact whether your child sees their dad or not. I don't agree with children being used as weapons against the other parent. I don't agree with parents being withheld from seeing their children, because a lot of the time it's hurt and bitterness from one side or ego from the other side. And at the end of the day, the only person who ends up being affected the most is the children. But there are a lot of dads who don't have access to their children, and unfortunately the court system in this country does tend to favour mums. But then on the flip side, you know, there's different situations. But I think, you know, there are a lot of dads that are genuinely being prevented from seeing their children, and it's heartbreaking because a lot of the time, like I said, it's because kids are being used as a pawn or a weapon, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of people watching this, and especially dads, is like, how do you successfully co-parent, right? Like, and it said, I'm not a father, I don't have any children as of yet, but I have friends that are not with the mother of their children or child, and that conversation, there seems to be always a bitterness around sort of like, I don't know, but is there a formula? Is there something that we as men can do to make the situation a bit more positive? Do
you know what? Any relationship is tough, right? You're going to have your ups and downs, but even more so if you were in a romantic relationship and you've broken up, and now, you know, you have a child and you're having to still have a conversation or, you know, have some sort of relationship with that person now that you've parted ways or separated. I think it is difficult. I like soft life. I like easy, stress-free, soft life. So I don't have time to argue, right?
She says it with a straight face, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have time to argue. So you want to do something, do it. Here's my child. See ya, bye. You don't want to do it? That's fine, no problem. I honestly don't have time for it. And I think it's obviously everybody is different. Not everyone has that same mentality. But I think if you are co-parenting and it's not working, I think the best thing you can do is have mediation. And either with someone who knows you, or have someone who is completely neutral, who doesn't know either of you, that can actually sit down and hear either side. But I think successful co-parenting is really, really important, super important. Even when you get new partners, I think it's really important to have a relationship with the other partners. If you get a new partner, I think it's really important to have a relationship. If they've got kids, to have a relationship with the other mum or the dad or whoever it is, because essentially, if you're settling down and you're going to become one big co-parenting family, you can't just dismiss that other person. You have to still build a relationship with them, whether it's just, you know, a hi and bye, or just checking in how are the kids today, whatever it is. Everyone needs to just be able to live peacefully, because the kids will see that, right? And the kids will pick up on it. So I think it's really important. It doesn't matter how bitter you're feeling, whether that person has done you wrong or whatever it is. We as adults have got to put our feelings aside sometimes and think, actually, the kids have got to come first. And having positive co-parenting relationships is really, really, really important. But the one thing I would say is, if it's not working for whatever reason, as long as the one person's not in danger or being abused or whatever, get mediation. It's probably one of the most powerful things you can do to move forward.
Your sister is the incredible Charlene White,
Yes.
that many know from Loose Women. I'm a big fan.
You look like you watch Loose Women as well.
Do you know what? Listen, wow. Listen,
Undercover
the
Loose
shots fired.
Undercover
it's a good
Loose
show.
Women. Yeah. Undercover
Do you know
Loose
what I mean?
Women. Watch
They talk about real issues. And if I'm working from home and it's on in the background, sometimes the remote doesn't work.
So it stays on.
Yeah, it stays on.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? No, Charlene, being your sister, she's achieved a lot. I think she was correct me if I'm wrong, was she the first black lady to present News at 10?
Yeah, she was, yeah.
So, she must have been a massive she is a massive inspiration for you. What was it like growing up with her? And
I taught her everything she knows. She got those accolades because of me.
Wow.
She is me. No, joking. No, absolutely. I think every time I hear someone say they're in awe of her, I'm like, I don't even think you realise how much I'm in awe of her. We lost our mum when I was 17, and my sister kind of had to take on that mum role, and I don't think people really realise kind of to the extent you see Charlene the broadcaster, Charlene the presenter, but you don't see Charlene the sister, Charlene the mum, Charlene the auntie, or Charlene the friend. She's absolutely incredible and amazing. Yeah.
Also, Charlene, who is going to knock on parents' doors and inquire about why her niece is feeling a certain way. But now big up Charlene.
That was my daughter's auntie on her dad's side.
Oh, okay.
If that was my sister, she would be very. My sister's the very calm, level-headed one that would want to talk about it, and she's that one. I'm the ratchet sister. Yeah, that's me.
Charlene,
and my brother's the one that just looks at us like, what's wrong with you?
Charlene, if you're watching, I didn't mean to throw you in any drama. I thought, my bad. Please, I don't. I'm small time. Please. Look, it's been an incredible conversation. What advice would you give to someone looking at this and thinking, do you know what? She's achieved so much. She's doing so much great stuff. What advice would you give to a young black female, a young black mum that wants to do the things that you're doing currently at the moment?
I'd say, be authentic. It's funny because we talk about this whole cancel culture, and when you see people backpedaling and putting out apologies and stuff like that, and I always say I could never be a celeb on that level because I ain't apologising for shit. If I've said or done something, I'm full of chat. I take it back. Yeah, I'm not backing. I'm not backing down.
Straight.
Yeah, I'm not backing down. So I think it's about being authentic, being true to yourself, but also knowing what you want, and not compromising on that. If you've got a goal, follow it. Sometimes you're trying to achieve something, things aren't going to go your own way, and that's fine. You just have to take a different path to get to your destination. And I think as well, have a good, like I said before about the footballers, have a good team around you. There's times where I'm just go because I'm trying to do something, and my friends will say, you need to chill off. You need to slow down, take it easy, take a day for yourself. And they're always hyping me up. Anytime I do Good Morning Britain or anything like that, and I don't tell them, I guarantee you I will be confronted in my WhatsApp.
Oh, you should do it. These are big things. These are not normal things. I know,
but it's for me, I'm I just want to do, I have a big thing with imposter syndrome. So sometimes I think, imagine I go and I say the wrong thing. I don't care if 500,000 people have seen it on Good Morning Britain because they don't know me, I don't care. But imagine my friends see it. I have to, go for dinner with them next week and they'll be like, why did you say it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I am getting better with that. I've started telling them maybe a minute before I'm about to go on.
A minute?
Yeah, which they hate. Wow. But I'm learning now more to shout about my accomplishments and things that I've achieved, just because my friends tell me, Carina, you need to, you should be proud of yourself.
Definitely.
You're always, bigging up everyone else, you need to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
So, I'm getting better with that. But any advice, I'd definitely say just be true to yourself. Know where it is that you want to get to. And, that could change along the way, but you might have an obstacle, jump over it, smash through it. Whatever you do, don't lose focus or lose sight of what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Amazing. Well, Carina, I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed the conversation. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Where can people plug in with what you're doing individually, BComs, Black Mums Upfront? Where can people get in contact with you?
So for BComs, definitely Google or I can't remember it, or on Instagram, it's just BComs.
Yeah.
And then my Instagram is _Carina with a C WH. Black Mums Upfront is just Black Mums Upfront. And if you want to listen to any of the pods, there's some really juicy episodes on there. It's available on all streaming websites. You can check it out. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions on how to get into industries or whatever, please do just reach out to me. I'm always trying to give back and help people get their step onto the ladder. So yeah, definitely.
Now, I'm just going to put a disclaimer in there that if anyone hollers at you off the back of watching this interview, I want 20%. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Just,
we got you.
Yeah,
we got
just keep
you.
a track of it.
We got you.
But no, Carina, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you so much
amazing.
for having me. Thank you. Hi guys, I'm Carina and I got a message for you. Why are you not subscribed to Beam? It's the best YouTube channel on the platform. So hit that subscribe. Bloop.